Mist curled over the red fork like a ghostly shawl at dawn, turning the riverlands into a blurred tapestry of pewter and pale rose. Catelyn Tully watched the shifting veil from her chamber balcony, the chill of early spring sharp upon her cheekbones. Beneath the hush of river rush, Riverrun's courtyard stirred. Guards changing posts, stable boys leading out horses still steaming from their stalls, servants clattering pails as they prepared flagstones for the day. She should have found comfort in such familiar rhythms, but absence left everything askew. Brandon Stark, fiery, reckless Brandon, no longer thundered through the gates laughing at the sunrise. The echo of his last farewell still clung to the walls, an unfinished song that ended in screams before the Iron Throne. In the weak light, Catelyn pressed her palms to the cool stone and breathed against it, as though the keep itself might answer her grief. Behind her, a soft knock. Maester Vyman entered with careful gravity, the silver torchlight of his chain catching on his collarbone. "My lady," he began, "your Lord Father requests your presence in the solar." She nodded, smoothing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Grief had hollowed her eyes, yet duty. Father always said duty was the keep's true mortar, carried her onward. Even now, she thought, Brandon would ride the wind of his own legend, unburdened by letters and alliances and heavy silences with grieving fathers. Down the stair she glided, each step a quiet toll of memory. Hoster Tully awaited her before the tall, arched windows of the solar, hands clasped behind his broad back. Dust motes circled him like fading fireflies, lambent in the beam of fragile sunlight. His beard had grown whisker-white in mere weeks, as though sorrow leached color faster than time. "My cat," he said, and the name, once a fond whisper, felt brittle. "Come sit with me." He did not sit himself. Instead, he paced the tiger-lilied rug like a lord besieged. "The realm staggers toward war," he said, voice low. "Your sister has been promised to Jon Arryn, that we might bind the veil. But the North—" He halted, brow furrowing. "Eddard Stark summons banners, yet grief swallows him whole. The match once promised. It died with Brandon." Her reply came colder than she intended. A promise need not die. Alliances carve pathways wider than graves. He cleared his throat. "There is another offer, unexpected yet advantageous." A weight settled in her gut. "From whom?" Before he answered, the door eased open again. Light shone on a slender form cloaked in charcoal velvet but lined sensibly in river green. Lord Peter Baelish stepped through with the poised grace of a man entering a dream he had rehearsed too often. His gray-green eyes alighted on Catelyn. Oh, how they shone with impossible hope, and he bowed low. "Littlefinger," she breathed. "Lady Catelyn." His smile wavered between reverence and triumph. "Forgive my intrusion. I come at Lord Hoster's invitation, and with his blessing to make humble suit for your hand." He laid a small wooden box on the table, unlatched it, and turned it so the contents faced her. A ring of slender silver woven into a river rose, petals cupping a pale green tourmaline the shape of a tear. The stone's color matched his eyes. Memory surged. A summer long ago when they were children at play beneath the apple boughs. Peter, slight and eager, had boasted he would win her someday. She'd laughed, gentle but dismissive. He was a ward no grander than the smallest of the stepstones. Brandon Stark had seemed a rising sun by comparison, every glance from him a dawn. Now the sun had set in ash and fire, and here stood Peter, all grown yet still slight, offering a sliver of light while the horizon burned. Hoster's gaze bore into her. "House Tully needs strong friends," he said. "Lord Baelish commands but little land, yet his talents in Gulltown's counting houses have earned him coin, ships, and—" The Lord pressed on, as though enumerating traits of a warhorse. "Connection to the Lord's merchant of the narrow sea. Coin is a sword by another name." Peter's lips quirked. "I can make Riverrun rich," he said softly, "and I can pledge myself to any cause your Lord Father deems righteous. Most of all," his voice trembled, "I can cherish you as no one else ever would." Catelyn's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She thought of Eddard, distant in the north, frost rhyming his grief. She thought of her sister, already promised away, and of her father, eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights spent parsing letters from lords both loyal and treacherous. War was a tide. You could not stop its wash, but you might channel it. She drew in a breath smelling faintly of beeswax and parchment. Aye, the words tangled. She pictured the god's wood at Winterfell, a heart tree steeped crimson. She pictured Brandon atop a chestnut stallion, arm flung wide at dawn. She pictured Peter, young and stubborn, bleeding on Riverrun's stones after Brandon had bested him in that ridiculous duel. Love, pride, promise, pity, an unholy knot. Hoster stepped forward, laying a hand on her shoulder. Child, the realm will bleed. We must see the Tully trout swim in safe water. Duty, she thought again. Mother's ghost seemed to murmur by her ear, telling her to stand strong for the family. She opened her mouth. I accept, she whispered. Peter sank to one knee, disbelief and rapture mingling across his fine-boned face. He slipped the ring upon her finger as though afraid the dream might shatter and cut him with its shards. When he looked up, tears glittered. In that moment, Catelyn felt cornered by a tenderness she could not reciprocate, a sweetness that tasted of guilt. The wedding transpired within a fortnight, swift as lightning across a parched sky. Riverrun's sept was draped in Tully blue and Baelish gray, lilies floating in silver basins, candles trembling in alcoves like secret hearts. Lords Minor came for curiosity if not for alliance. They gawked at the up-jumped Littlefinger taking to wife a daughter of Riverrun. Peter endured every stare with a smile that hovered between smugness and self-mockery, as though he found irony delicious and could savor it alone. Catelyn wore a gown of deep blue silk. The weight of the fabric grounded her when her thoughts might drift to heartbreak. The stranger's visage watched from stained glass as the septon bound her wrist to Peter's with ribbon. When Peter lifted her veil, his kiss lingered too long, and she felt the hush of the crowd stir like leaves in a sudden wind. Curiosity, titillation, something darker. After the feast, after wine and an archery display and songs half-hearted for fear of the world to come, the hall of Riverrun emptied in pools of taper light. Catelyn walked the corridor to her bedchamber alone, escorted only by silent guards who peeled away at the threshold. The door closed behind her with a muted finality. Peter arrived moments later. He moved carefully, almost reverently, as though each step upon the woven rushes might awaken some sleeping future. He poured wine. His hands trembled. She drank because her mouth had gone dry. He traced the lid of the goblet with one thumb. Will you be happy, my lady? His voice bore no mockery now, only naked yearning. Tell me what you need and I will become it. She stared into garnet liquid, searching its surface for prophecy. I need peace, she said. I need my family safe. Then peace I shall purchase. He set the goblet aside. And those who threaten your blood shall regret the thought. Candle glow gilded the planes of his face, casting shadows that deepened his eyes. For a moment she recalled simpler feelings. Kindness toward a clever boy who had made her laugh when lessons were tedious, who had carved a fishhook charm for her named after the Tully trout. She let the memory soften her expression. He stepped closer. She did not retreat. When their lips touched, it was gentle, almost chaste. Yet behind gentleness she sensed coals glowing. This man had bled and nearly died for her once, and he had thrived on the taste of ambition ever since. The union between them might smother that fire or feed it with new fuel. As they lay together, tentative, uncertain, a trembling dance of flesh meeting flesh, Catelyn wondered what gods she had pleased or angered that her life should hinge on such fragile moments. Outside, thunder muttered beyond the riverbanks like distant drums. She pressed her forehead to Peter's shoulder afterward and listened to his heart's quick tattoo. She could almost imagine it beating a promise. I will rise for you, I will rise for you, I will rise. Northmen's banners flapped against spring gusts. Eddard Stark's host arrived at Riverrun months later bearing both grief and iron purpose. Catelyn watched from the ramparts as shaggy men in furs guided wagon trains across the drawbridge. Wolves snarled on gray flags, Behind those banners rode Eddard himself, solemn as a storm cloud, face pale beneath windburn. In the great hall's hush his gaze met hers. Surprise flashed, then pain sharp as sleet. He had expected to claim the betrothal left vacant. Instead he found her hand encircled by Peter's gift, the tourmaline gleaming verdant under torchlight. Eddard bowed stiffly. Words between them fell brittle. Peter, at her side in brocade the color of smoke, greeted the Lord of Winterfell with courteous distance, offering condolences and counsel in the same breath. Catelyn sensed Ned measuring Littlefinger like a blade weighs an outstretched hand. Wary, uncertain of motive, that night she visited Ned alone in the Godswood. Weirwood leaves whispered overhead. Moonlight traced scars of sorrow across his cheeks. "Cat," he said, voice raw. "Why?" She told him duty and alliance and the storm gathering under Robert Baratheon's banner. She told him Brandon's ghost would not keep her warm, nor protect their father's halls. Ned listened, silent, eyes gray as dusk. At last he nodded. May Peter prove worthy, but the faint line between his brows suggested doubt rooted deep. Peter never wore armor, yet he waged war nonetheless. As Robert's rebellion ignited, Littlefinger's letters flew like arrows across the narrow sea, striking coin from Myrish usurers, Tyroshi dylords, and the Bravosi Sea Lord himself. Catelyn witnessed scrolls pile upon his desk, contracts and promises and the invisible nets of debt. Nets he cast wide until Riverlords loyal to House Tully found themselves fed, armed, and indebted to a man they'd barely noticed before. He spoke to her each evening, pacing before the hearth while she stitched banners for Tully levies. "A grain shortage in Pink Maiden? I've arranged Tyroshi wheat barges at half usual levy. Blackwood archers need fletching? A Pentoshi consortium now supplies goose feathers at cost. When the lords wonder who greased these wheels, they will remember it was Baelish silver that rolled them forward." She watched him, half awe, half foreboding. "They will owe you. They will owe you," he corrected with a smile. "House Tully, House Baelish." His eyes glimmered like coins in torch glow. "And should the dragons fall again, we shall perch upon their bones." The war progressed. Battles thundered south and west. Catelyn's letters from Lisa in the Vale sang of Jon Arryn's banners rallying to Robert. Yet whispers reached Riverrun that Tywin Lannister weighed his options, that Prince Rhaegar sought allies beyond the Dornish sands. Peter listened, weighed, shifted coin in silence. He spoke of spies plucked from Lysine pillow houses, of merchants who ferried secrets in false bottoms of spice crates. His smile grew sharper. One night, as flames crackled low, she found him staring into the fire, expression unreadable. She touched his arm. "You seldom rest." He leaned back, eyes reflecting emberlight. "There is a ladder before us, sweet cat. Each rung is an opportunity. I dare not sleep while others climb. And if the ladder breaks under weight of ambition, then I shall build another." He caught her hand, pressing her knuckles to his lips. "I build for us, for the child you may soon carry." Heat flooded her cheeks. She had not yet quickened, though midwives murmured hope. The thought of a babe, little fingers curled around hers, sparked both warmth and dread. What world would that child inherit? A realm where Peter's web glinted unseen, or one trampled by dragons revived in wrath? The babe came with autumn storms lashing the Red Fork. A boy, slim as a willow switch, lungs piping strong despite his slight frame. Peter wept openly at the birth, his tears mingling with sweat upon her brow as he kissed her damp hair. They named the child Brynden, for the blackfish, though Peter joked privately he would teach the boy to swim in deeper currents than any fish had dreamt. When Hoster held his grandson, pride lit the old man's face like sun striking river glass. War still raged beyond the Riverlands, yet within Riverrun's walls peace flickered, a candle cupped against tempest. Peter's attentions grew double-edged. By day he cooed at his son, by night he calculated dowries, craftsman guild charters, secret tithes to hedge knights who might one day prove useful. "Every coin I place now is a seed," he whispered to Catelyn as Brynden suckled. A forest for our children to wander. She wondered if forests planted with debts would bear fruit or thorn. News of the trident arrived on the wings of ravens drenched in rain. Prince Rhaegar was slain beneath Robert's hammer blow. Lord Hoster assembled his banners to march, but Peter counseled caution. "Let fools hurry to kneel," he said. "We shall wait, and Riverrun will be the feast all suitors must attend." Catelyn stood at the ramparts, Brynden in her arms, watching thunderheads bruise the horizon. Edmure rode out with the host, eager to join Robert's final push. Peter declined command, preferring quills to swords. Yet he whispered into letters that flew north to Winterfell, south to Storm's End, west to the Rock itself, promising rivers of grain, fleets of barges, loans that might redeem a war-torn realm. When King Aerys fell and smoke coiled above King's Landing, Riverrun welcomed victors weary and bleeding. Robert Baratheon, broad as an oak felled by lightning, laughed hearty yet coughed blood into his gauntlet. Jon Arryn wore the crown of piety and pragmatism in his smile, and Eddard Stark, gaunt with loss, carried a bundle swaddled in silence. Peter greeted them with measured warmth, offering Riverrun's cellars and its master of coin. "The realm bleeds," he said. "Let us staunch it with wise ledgers." Robert clapped his shoulder with drunken gratitude. Yet Ned's gaze remained wary. Catelyn felt the gulf widen. Once she might have bridged it with a touch of his hand. Now her fingers were threaded in Peter's. Years unspooled like silk from a loom. Brynden grew thin and quick-witted, fond of puzzles Peter carved in ivory tiles. Catelyn bore a daughter, Elise, whose red gold curls mirrored her grandmother's. Peace returned in fragile pulses, but scars of war remained. Charred villages along the Tumblestone, silent orchards where arrows still hung. Peter directed funds to rebuild, earning praise from small folk and fealty from lesser lords. Each new oath stirred rumor that Littlefinger was becoming a great lord after all. His lands in the Fingers expanded by marriage rights and purchase. One winter evening, Catelyn walked the Godswood alone, moonlight frosting branches. She knelt before the heart tree, carved face weeping crimson sap. "Old gods," she whispered, "guard my children, guard this realm from pride and hidden knives." Footsteps rustled snow. Peter approached, cloak swishing like dark wings. "Praying to trees, my lady?" His tone mixed teasing and wonder. "I could build you a sept of marble, gild its windows, but still you seek the old faces. They listen without judgment," she said. He brushed snow from her shoulder. "I judge nothing you do. You saved me, Cat. Every triumph I win, I set at your feet." She met his eyes. In their depths she saw ambition writ in stars, beautiful, cold. "Triumphs breed enemies," she murmured. "Allies too." He smiled. "I have approached Lord Tywin about a marriage, our Brynden to a young Lannister cousin. Gold and trout and the coin I fashion can make even lions purr." Her stomach tightened. "A Lannister bride? Why not? The lion owes debts after Robert's war. I shall hold the coin. The rock will hold our name." She pictured her son, slight and sensitive, among Lannisters gorged on power. "He is but 10. 10 is old enough for betrothal." She turned away. Snowflakes drifted on her lashes. "Let me speak with Brynden first." Peter bowed, half mocking, half sincere. "As you wish. I serve your heart." Yet as he retreated she sensed the invisible wires he wove, subtle as spider silk, binding her choices to his design. She wondered if marriages were truly forged in septs or if some were merely illusions cast by clever men. Far to the east, rumors arose of dragon skulls stirring in vaulted crypts, of Dothraki hordes marching under a girl with silver-gold hair. Peter collected each whisper like another coin. At supper one night he said, "If dragons return, imagine the price of obsidian. We should corner the mines of Dragonstone." Catelyn set down her spoon. "You see coin in every omen. And why not? Coin moves men. Men move armies. Armies shape fates. Is there nothing else that stirs you?" His eyes softened a fraction. "You," he said simply. "Always you. But love twisted with ambition can strangle as well as shield. She kissed his brow, feeling both tenderness and trepidation. For in the quiet between heartbeats she recalled Ned's wary gaze, Brandon's laughing shout, the boy Peter bleeding on stone to win a kiss he never received. All paths converged here, on the reddened route of desire. She wondered what songs bards would sing of this union decades hence. Littlefinger and the Tully Rose, the spider and the trout. Would they sing of peace forged from coin, or of daggers flashed in shadowed halls? In King's Landing, Varys the spider began to whisper of a lord in the riverlands whose debts threaded kingdoms. The Iron Bank wrote polite inquiries. Merchants from Karth sent gifts of green glass birds that sang in the dark. Peter welcomed each, adding links to his chain of influence. Yet for every ally, an enemy sharpened blades unseen. One such blade struck in the night. A band of outlaws, perhaps paid by rival merchants, seized a caravan of Bryndon's betrothal gifts en route to Lannisport. Bodies were strung from trees as warning. Peter read the report coolly, lips thinning. "Someone seeks to loosen my grip," he said. Catelyn felt a chill. "Will you answer in kind?" "I will answer in something finer than steel." He dipped quill to ink. "Gold cuts deeper, given time." As he wrote, Catelyn gazed at the flicker of candle flame. She saw how the light threw shadows that grew, conflating walls until corners disappeared. Peter's realm was built on such shadows, yet shadows shift. They both listened to Bryndon's laughter echo in the corridor. A laughter still bright, still innocent, unaware of dragons to the east and daggers in the dark, of ladders built from debts and hopes. Catelyn laid a hand on Peter's wrist. "Promise me," she said, "that whatever ladders you climb, you will not let our children fall." He looked up, eyes gleaming. "I would sooner hurl myself from the moon door than see Brynden or Elise harmed." He kissed her knuckles. "I swear by every god old and new." She believed him in that moment, yet she wondered what price the world might claim or such vows forged of love and hunger intertwined. Winter crept southward, white breath across the realm. A raven arrived bearing a seal of black wax, Eddard Stark's wolf. Ned wrote of unrest along his northern coast. Ironborn raiders probing, Greyjoy whispers swelling. He asked if Riverrun could spare grain for garrisons bracing the cold. He also inquired after Catelyn's health, the children, Lord Baelish's new trade fleets. Peter read the letter with a half-smile. "The North believes it can stand alone, yet it stretches out a beggar's palm." "They are my kin," Catelyn said. "Then we shall feed them at interest." She frowned, but he stroked her cheek. "Nothing cruel, only fair compensation for transport. We risk ice, storms, pirates. Commerce must breathe even in winter." She sighed, understanding the logic yet tasting ash. "Write him gently." "I always do." Peter's quill danced. He drafted terms that seemed kind until one traced the ledger of obligation and saw the encircling loop. Catelyn sealed the scroll and prayed Ned would read between lines. On a dawn-rhymed pearl gray, Catelyn woke to find Peter standing at the window, Brynden asleep in his arms, Elise clinging to his leg. Snowflakes drifted through cracked casements, melting on Bryndon's lashes. Peter whispered a lullaby she did not know, something soft and sad in the tongue of the Finger's fisherfolk. Turning, he met her gaze. For a heartbeat, she saw only a father fearful of the future, holding his treasures close. In that fragile instant, she felt love stir for him, not born of childhood promises but of shared nights soothing fevers, shared dawns counting hearthfires spared from war. Yet behind love lay ambition, a constant tide. She wondered if tides could be tamed or only ridden until they dashed one against hidden rocks. She joined him at the window, pressed her palm over his upon Bryndon's back. Snow fell beyond, weaving white silence over river and keep and the long road south where kings ruled and spiders spun. Together they watched the dawn, uncertain whether it foretold spring's mercy or winter's wrath. The realm held its breath, awaiting the next stone to ripple waters Littlefinger had made his own. And as the first pale sunbeam pierced the clouds, lighting their son's sleeping face, Catelyn Tully Baelish, lady of river and coin, mother of children who might inherit a web or be snared by it, resolved that whatever storms rose, she would stand between them and the world, as fierce and unyielding as the currents that carved Riverrun. For though war might be waged with swords and coin and whispers, a mother's heart was an anvil on which fates were forged, and she would see her children tempered strong enough to bend but never break beneath the weight of Littlefinger's impossible dreams. Snow hissed against shutter panes as night deepened over Riverrun. Beyond the battlements the Red Fork ran iron-black, its banks silvered in moon-glint ice. Catelyn leaned against the high window arch, while shawl drawn close, and watched winter lay veils across her father's lands. In the cradle of her arm Elise slept, warm and small and unaware of the restless kingdom that trembled beyond nursery walls. Each tiny breath clouded the glass. Catelyn traced the fog with a fingertip, shaping a heart that melted almost as soon as it formed. Behind her the chamber door opened on a thread of torchlight. Peter stepped inside, smelling of parchment and frost. His boots made no sound over the Myrish carpet. Habit had taught him to move like thought itself, unseen yet everywhere. He paused a moment, as though the sight of mother and child carved him motionless, then eased closer and placed a careful kiss upon Catelyn's temple. "She would not sleep without your lullaby," he murmured. "Tomorrow she will have a fever," Catelyn answered softly. "The maester says a draught of willow bark will keep it from her lungs. Our Elise is strong." He brushed a copper curl from the girl's brow. "The gods would not give such delicate hands to a child fated for fever." Catelyn gave a tired smile. "The gods rarely consult poets when they fashion sorrows." Peter's eyes flicked away, unreadable. "Come to the hearth," he urged. "I have news." She laid Elise in her cradle, tucked furs around the child, and followed him to the mantel where a fat log hissed and popped. The fire's glow revealed fresh snow dusting Peter's shoulders. He had walked the ramparts again, thinking among the battlements like a crow brooding over fields. He offered her mulled wine. Lord Tywin's riders reached the gates at dusk. He began once she had sipped. Ser Kevin's son Lancel delivered letters, gracious compliments, and consent to discuss betrothal terms in Lannisport after the spring thaw. "So soon," she murmured. "Brynden turns 11 on Barrowmoss. To the Lannisters, the promise is the prize. They would secure it early before other houses sent opportunity." His mouth curved. "I have written back with artful hesitation. We will not seem eager." "You are eager. I am prepared." A spark leapt in his eyes. "Gold is a shield that outlasts steel. If the lions mean to sheathe us in their coin, I shall see the metal hammered to our shape, not theirs." Catelyn's gaze drifted to the low settle where Brynden's wooden practice sword lay abandoned, points dented and paint worn by countless drills. "He dreams of tourneys, not ledgers. He pretends to be Ser Galladon of Morn when he thinks no one watches." "Boys dream of dragons too," Peter said softly. "Yet dragons burn. I would spare him the flame." He set aside his cup and reached for her hands. "Let the realm tip and rage. Our children will perch above the storm." She felt the callus upon his thumb where quills rubbed year after year, a scholar's scar turned weapon. "Remember, when storms break, they wash away towers as well as hovels." "Not towers built of debts owed to me," he replied, almost tender. Their eyes met across the haunted hush between crackle and wind shriek. She wondered if he believed his own assurances, or if he simply loved the taste of persuasion upon his tongue. A rap sounded at the door. Maester Vyman entered with a parchment bearing the direwolf seal. "A raven from Winterfell, my lady." Ned's hand, spare and direct, filled the page. He thanked her for grain shipments that had reached White Harbor, though he noted the interest demanded was steep as the Barrowlands cliffs. More pressing, he wrote of disquiet among the Greyjoys. Longships sighted off Bear Isle, thralls drifting dead on the tide. "I fear Balon tests old chains," the letter ended. "Pray watch the river mouths, and pray you remember Brandon's laughter when the world grows dark." Catelyn read the lines twice, the last sentence stinging like sleet on bare skin. She passed the parchment to Peter. His brow rose at the mention of interest. I charged what the risk required, he said. He calls it steep. We carried grain across half the realm in deep winter. I sink ships. Dead sailors draw lawsuits. He shrugged. Should the North think it charity, let them send their own crows to bargain. Catelyn folded the letter, heart heavy. Ned worries for us as for his own kin. He may yet learn that coin weighs as much as blood. Peter walked to the desk, selecting fresh vellum. I will draft reassurance, tempered by reminder. The North remembers. Yes, but wallets remember too. She watched cool scratches bloom like black frost across the page and felt the slow ache of distance within her ribs. Brynden Baelish found his mother in the God's Wood the next afternoon, where snow-laden branches drooped over the frozen pond. He wore a thick gambeson and carried his blunt trainer across his back. Rosy breath puffed as he ran. "Mother," he called. "Ser Desmond says my stance improves." He executed a clumsy flourish, nearly toppling into the drift. She laughed and steadied him. Each day stronger than the last. She brushed snow from his padded sleeve. He was slight of build, much like his father, but his eyes held a restless dreamer's blue, a Tully blue. Remember, a true knight wields mind and heart before steel. Father says silver wins wars. Brynden's voice held no scorn, only curiosity. Silver feeds men, she corrected gently, but courage gives them cause. She led him toward the heart tree, crimson leaves stark against winter white. Do you know why we kneel when we pray here? Brynden frowned. Because the old gods hear through wood and leaf. Yes, the tree stands silent, yet listens. It judges not coin nor crown. She brushed a gloved hand along rough bark. One day you will sit among lords with purses fat or empty. Remember the silence of the heart tree. Listen before you speak. Weigh before you strike. Her son nodded, solemn in the hush. She bent to press a kiss to his brow, tasting salt where snowmelt trickled. For an instant peace seemed possible. Then distant horns brayed from the outer wall, their note sharp as a knife snapped in half. Brynden's head jerked up. Riders! Catelyn's pulse leapt. She gathered her skirts, clutching Brynden's hand, and hurried through drifts toward the castle proper. The riders wore cloaks lined with marten and bore the Kraken sigil half hidden under travel grime. Their leader, Captain Gerold Goodbrother, dismounted in the courtyard with stiff politeness. Peter greeted him flanked by guardsmen in Tully livery. Catelyn arrived as Goodbrother produced a sealed scroll. My Lord Baelish, the Iron Man said, voice rasped by spray and wind. Lord Balon Greyjoy conveys his compliments. Merchants of the Riverlands have trespassed on fair seas. Toll must be rendered for safe passage. Toll, Peter repeated, rolling the word across his tongue like a coin he had yet to weigh. 2,000 gold dragons, Goodbrother declared, to be delivered to Pike before midsummer. Elsewise, ships sailing from Seaguard shall burn. Gasps rippled among courtiers. Peter's smile remained placid. Iron men have lively imaginations. My thanks for bringing it all this way. He turned to a page. Wine for our guest. No wine. Goodbrother's gaze flicked to Catelyn, lingering too long. Gold, or riverfolk will learn salt pays no debts. Peter's smile thinned. The Riverlands learned to repel salt long ago. Ask yourself how many Krakens reach this far inland and swim home again. Goodbrother's hand tightened on his sword belt. The sea reaches everywhere, given time. Then time will cost you dearly. Peter tucked the scroll into his sleeve. Ride back to Pike. Tell Lord Balon his toll has been weighed and found wanting. Should he choose flame, I shall ensure the price is ash in his mouth. Goodbrother spat on the stone. Guards stepped forward. The Ironman wheeled, mount stamping, and thundered from the yard. As hoofbeats faded, Peter exhaled softly. Fools mistake bluff for leverage. Is it only bluff? Catelyn asked. For now. His gaze followed the departing riders. Yet if Balon gathers longships, our grain routes to the north lie vulnerable. We will need escorts. Ser Desmond's levy. Perhaps Ser Mark Piper's archers by River Galley. More cost, she murmured. Investment, he corrected. And opportunity. The Iron Throne will reimburse regions that secure its coasts. Catelyn studied his profile, the sharp chin, the calculating eyes. Somewhere beyond strategy beat a heart that feared poverty as other men feared dragons. She touched his sleeve. Mind the risk. Brynden needs a father whole, not merely clever. His expression softened. Whole I shall remain. For him. For you. He kissed her knuckles. Come right to Ned. Remind him which throat the kraken threatens. Letters flew like winter ravens. To Pike, to King's Landing, to Lannisport. Within a moon's turn rumors flooded back. Alon Greyjoy had purchased pine for shipbuilding at Lordsport. At Dragonstone, Lord Stannis, master of ships, petitioned the small council for funds to fortify Gulltown's fleet, citing unsettled tides. Varys whispered to the Hand that Lord Baelish offered loans at merciful rates for any royal shipyards seeking expansion. Catelyn heard the whisper secondhand when Edmure returned from a ride to Fairmarket. Merchants brag in taverns that our Peter is hand in all but name. Her brother scoffed over supper, wine dark against his beard. They say he mortgages kings the way millers mortgage grain. Peter smiled without offense. If I may ensure the crown's solvency while lining Riverrun's coffers, should we protest? Edmure snorted. Beware of kings who recall debts only when heads are ripe for pikes. A king who forgets his purse strings soon trips upon them, Peter retorted, voice mild. Robert Baratheon drinks and hunts. He adores any man who relieves him of arithmetic. Catelyn quieted them with a glance at Brynden, who listened wide-eyed to grown men barbs. We speak of heavy matters, she told her son. Not fit for supper. Brynden nodded, though excitement lingered. Later she found him in the library, poring over a map of the narrow sea. He traced isles with an ink-stained finger as though plotting his own flotilla. What do you seek? She asked. The stepstones, he said. Father says they choke trade, but whoever holds them can tax every ship. She crouched beside him. Do not hunger after tolls and tariffs alone. Remember, islands are also graves when storms rise. Brynden's mouth twisted. Father says storms obey those who read the wind first. And the wind obeys no man, she answered, smoothing his hair. Sleep now. Dawn's lessons wait. In the months that followed, Hoster Tully's health withered like parchment left to the hearth. Coughs shook him until blood splattered linen. Catelyn spent long vigils at his bedside, swapping cool cloths while maesters burned incense and muttered of humors. Peter visited often, respectful, yet always with a ledger tucked underarm. One gray morning Lord Hoster beckoned him close. You spin spider silk through my hall, Baelish, he rasped. See my children remain unbound by it. Peter bowed his head. I would lay down my life before harm touches them, my lord. Your life, but coin knows no honor. Hoster's eyes, cloud blue, pierced the younger man. Guard them. Peter kissed the withered knuckles. On my honor. Catelyn watched, uncertain whether relief or unease better matched the scene. When Peter left, she pressed fresh water to Hoster's lips. The old lord caught her wrist with sudden strength. Cat, sweetling, promise me. Keep your own counsel. Peter, hearts can grow hungry in the dark. She whispered reassurance, though doubts coiled like river eels. Spring spilled thaw into the fords. River ice broke with booming cracks that echoed under dawn mist. Riverrun's training yard turned to mud where Brynden sparred with Ser Desmond squires. Elise toddled along the gallery chasing blue butterflies newly awakened. Catelyn breathed the wet air and dared taste hope. Then ravens descended. Jon Arryn was dead. The words rang through corridors. Set bells tolled in the September. Lisa's letter followed a day later, frantic with grief and accusation. The Lannisters, she wrote, had poisoned the Hand. She fled to the Eyrie, doors barred, child clutched to her breast. Catelyn stood frozen as Peter read the letter aloud in their solar. Candle flames guttered. Edmure swore under his breath. Peter folded the parchment with precise care. "The game turns," he said. "With Jon Arryn gone, Robert will reach for loyal men, yet his court overflows with vipers." "Lisa is alone," Catelyn breathed, "and frightened. Fright breeds foolish acts." Peter paced. "The area is strong, but supply lines are thin. If Tywin seeks advantage, he may court Lord Royce or Hunter clans to sow discord along the Giant's Lance." Edmure stabbed a finger at the map covering the table. "If Tywin moves east, he weakens the Trident. We should seize Harrenhal before him, deny the Lions a seat on our doorstep." Peter lifted a brow. "With whose garrison? Your levy is stretched escorting grain ships, and the Crown would call it rebellion." "The Crown sits drunk on mourning," Edmure growled. "Robert loves us. He'll forgive." Peter's laugh was quiet. "A king forgives so long as wine lasts, but the Lannisters pour his cup." He turned to Catelyn. "We must proceed through shadow, not siegecraft. I will ride to King's Landing, offer condolences, and counsel." Catelyn's heart thudded. "Alone? I travel quickest so." He cupped her cheek. "Fear not. I have threads they're thicker than rope." She clasped his wrist. "No matter the webs, spiders sometimes dine upon each other." He smiled. "Then I shall spin faster." Peter departed at sunrise with half a dozen scouts. Brynden wept quiet tears upon his sleeve. Elise wailed until Catelyn soothed her with songs. The castle felt larger without his sly whisper filling corners. Yet walls seemed thinner too, as though mortar had loosened the instant he passed beyond gates. Nights turned long. Hoster's breathing grew shallow. Edmure muttered of Greyjoy raids repelled at Seaguard. Ser Mark Piper wrote of strange cell-sail flags spotted near salt pans. A manticore on red, a wyvern on smoke. Catelyn walked ramparts and remembered Ned's warnings. On the 20th evening since Peter's departure, a hooded rider arrived under secret moon. Captain Christopher of the House Guard brought him to Catelyn's solar at once. The stranger bowed, tugging back his cowl to reveal the smooth, powdered features of a Braavosi courier. He produced a lacquered box stamped with a mockingbird sigil. Inside lay a slender ring of Valyrian steel set with a chip of black diamond and a folded parchment. The letter bore Peter's hand. The capital boils like thick stew. I ladle alliances with careful taste. Trust none who arrive unannounced, save the bearer of this token. More moves soon, think of sails against sunset. No signature, only his signet pressed into crimson wax. Catelyn reread the cryptic line, brow furrowed. Sails against sunset, code they had once devised in jest. Sunset for west, sails for trade, combined meaning a shipment through Lannisport. He must intend the Brynden Lannister betrothal to ripen, despite turmoil. She looked to the Braavosi. "Have you eaten?" "I sup only on my master's pay," he replied in careful common. "But I may rest a night before the return tide." She granted him guest right, a loaf of oat bread, a pinch of salt, and dispatched guards to ensure his safety. Yet long after torches dimmed, she sat awake, studying diamond glint and wondering how many daggers rattled in King's Landing's dark stew. Peter's next raven arrived a fortnight later, ink blotched by haste. Robert intends to ride north to Winterfell. Stark summoned for counsel. Varys sniffs Lannister plots. I work to steer suspicion elsewhere. Delay Greyjoy talk so Crown sees us indispensable. Also, whisper to Edmure, Harrenhal not ripe. Seek Seaguard charter instead. Catelyn read the lines under noon sun while Brynden practiced archery nearby. She lowered the scroll, pulse quick. Robert to Winterfell. Ned entangled with southern intrigue, again. She remembered Brandon's oath under the walls of King's Landing, ended in flame and felt dread coil. That evening she convened with Edmure and Ser Desmond. Seaguard charter, Edmure mused, tapping ale foam from his lip. Lord Mallister won't relinquish so easily. He respects father, Catelyn argued. A joint charter strengthens the Riverlands coast. Greyjoy raids threaten us both. Edmure rubbed his jaw. Aye, might be done if Mallister gains crown. Recognition as warden of the southern shores. The crown is Robert, Ser Desmond pointed out, and Robert prizes victory ornaments. Peter suggests timing, Catelyn said. If we present the charter as defense during the king's northern progress, he signs while mind on hunts, not politics. It risks Tywin's ire, Edmure warned. Tywin builds fleets. We defend rivers. Even lions require bridges. Thus the plan took root. Messengers rode to Seaguard bearing cordial overtures framed in quills of silver and persuasion of coin. Summer's eve fell warm upon Riverrun when a thunder of hooves battered the drawbridge. Catelyn, fresh from settling Elise for the night, hurried down to find Ser Mark Piper's outriders half-dragging an unconscious youth. Blood soaked the lad's surcoat. Tully blue turned purple-black. Ahide, Sir Marki Gaspid. Greyjoy longship up the Red Fork. They struck fishermen near Old Stones, burned barges. We pursued, skirmished, drove them off, but... He gestured to the boy. Their parting gift. Catelyn bent beside the fallen squire. An axe gash split the child's thigh to bone. He moaned, reaching blindly. She grasped his hand. "Maester!" she called, and grooms sprinted. As the lad was carried within, Ser Mark wiped soot from his brow. "They fly a banner I've not seen. Black kraken entwined with red wyvern. Says they've allies east." Her heart lurched. "Valentine sell sails. Perhaps," Mark muttered. "Or some bastard admiral full of piss and brazen." He spat. Either way, they tasted river steel this night. Catelyn thanked him, though dread gnawed. If Greyjoy sought foreign bywords, the coast war might widen. Peter's assurances felt suddenly gauzy as moth wings. She spent the night marching corridors, relighting gutter snipes, listening to the boy's fever dream cries. When dawn paled, he expired despite poultices. She closed his eyes herself, hands steady though tears blurred the seam between boy and stone. When Peter's raven arrived bearing only the words "King dead," lion roars Catelyn read it beneath the new-risen sun streaked crimson.
Robert Baratheon fallen.
Power quaked. Another raven followed within hours, this one from Lisa. They come for the Eyrie next. Flee. And one more from Ned, far south in the capital. Lines blurred by hurried quill. Not code but plea. Trust none here. Seek me if you can. For the love you bear our past. Guard the children. Cat.
War Valks.
She felt the world heave beneath her. Edmure burst into the solar. Word spreads. Joffrey claims throne. Stannis challenges. Renly gathers stormlords. Maesters say Tywin rides for Riverrun even now to secure his grandson's reign. Her breath caught. Peter is with the Lannisters. Or playing them. Who can know? Edmure slammed fist on table. We must ready defenses. Catelyn's gaze fell to Brynden and Elise playing with carved trout soldiers on the carpet, unaware of Crowshadow looming. She knelt, gathering them close, feeling their hearts drum. Outside, bells began to toll again. Morning or warning, she could not say. Snowmelt dripped from ramparts like weeping stone. In the yard, men strapped hauberks, sharpened polearms, mouths tight. River lords arrived hourly, oaths on lips, fear in eyes. That night Catelyn Tully Baelish stood on Riverrun's tallest tower, wind whipping her hair, and looked west where clouds glowed lurid with sunset. Fiery lions mane upon the horizon. She remembered Peter's code. Sails against sunset. Betrothal to buy peace, or invasion to buy power. She wondered whether her husband now steered those sails, or whether he merely clung to their masts as lions bared fangs. She prayed he remembered the promise pressed to her hand beside their sleeping son, and she vowed, beneath the cold blue star of dusk, that should Littlefinger's webs fail, she would weave her own, less subtle perhaps, but strong as river current, to snare any claw or crown that threatened her blood. For a mother's will could root deeper than coin, sharper than intrigue, and rivers, though they bend for none, may flood and drown kings when moons align. Thus the Riverlands shook under gathering storm, and in Riverrun's hearthlight 2 children played at battles whose echoes soon would thunder far beyond their nursery walls. The pieces set, the game begun anew, and somewhere in the coils of black marble corridors, Peter Baelish smiled his quiet smile, already moving the next unseen piece toward whatever dawn might follow the Lion's Night. Torchlight shimmered across Riverrun's banners like molten copper. The night Ser Desmond returned from the western marches with news fit to sunder marrow from bone. Tywin Lannister had crossed the Red Fork. 8,000 mail-clad lions moved behind him, siege engines trundling beside oxen teams, and outriders already scoured the byroads for captives. Catelyn received the report in Lord Hoster's sick room, where sour camphor and dying embers failed to hide the smell of approaching loss. Her father slept shallowly, lips ajar, breath rattling as though each draft were negotiated. She listened to Desmond's calm recital, felt the floor tilt beneath her, and gently laid a hand across Lord Hoster's brow, a silent promise that the fortress of his blood would not fall while he lingered at its hearth. Outside, frost fretted the window panes, though summer had scarcely waned. She thought of that as omen, winter riding in red and gold. Brynden, her son, waited in the corridor with his wooden sword belted over a quilted jack too small for a true battle, yet too large for childish games now. He straightened as Ser Desmond passed, eyes bright with a fear he strove to disguise. She drew him to her side, stroking hair the hue of chestnut bark. "Mother," he whispered, "will father send soldiers from the capital?" She knelt. "Your father sends more than swords, little trout. He sends his mind, and that may weigh heavier." Brynden swallowed but nodded, the courage of House Tully's river steel sparking in his gaze. Ravens flew. Edmure's call went to every sworn lord of the Trident. Piper, Vance, Bracken, Blackwood, Mal Lister, all commanded to muster at Riverrun within a fortnight. Ser Mark Piper brought 200 archers. Lord Bracken, sullen, arrived with twice that number in spears and grievances. Blackwoods camped across the Tumblestone to avoid bloodshed between ancient foes. Into this tense assembly strode Ser Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, summoned by Catelyn's coded plea. Gray streaked his beard now, but his eyes retained the keen of a raptor spotting trout in rapids. "Edmure holds his levy," he told Catelyn privately on the battlements, voice low over the hiss of rain. "But numbers alone will not stem Tywin. He brings siege towers enough to shadow half the keep." "Then we refuse him a siege," she replied, feeling the wind tug her cloak. "We fight in the field where rivers flank us." Brynden studied her, approval softening hard lines. "Your father taught you more than needlework. My father taught me rivers carve stone by patience. But storms must be met with drowned shoes." Word from King's Landing arrived piecemeal, like shards of shattered seal. Joffrey crowned, Ned Stark arrested on charges of treason after confronting Queen Cersei. Peter Baelish, Master of Coin, newly raised to Lord Paramount of Harrenhal by royal decree, had vanished from public view on the very night of Ned's arrest. Rumor placed him in the Tower of the Hand. Some said rifling ledgers. Others swore he boarded a Pentoshi galley at dawn's first gull. When Catelyn read those whispers, she felt twin blades of dread and relief. If Peter hid, he might yet maneuver to spare Ned's life. Surely he knew the debt owed to the man whose sister she might have been. Yet everyday Ned remained caged, risked a scorpion's verdict from Joffrey's pet Septon. She wrote another letter and sealed it with the trout entwined with Baelish mockingbird, sending it south on the swiftest raven. "Remember promises forged for our children. Do not let the crown claim Stark blood. The river runs swift to the sea. Let not grief dam it." Before Tywin's host came into sight, the Ironborn struck again, this time at Seaguard itself, setting siege rams against the booming tower under moonless dark. Lord Jason Mal Lister fended them off with grievous losses, sending a bleeding messenger to Riverrun begging for reinforcements. Edmure snarled at the message. "Tywin east, Krakens west, lions north and south. Must the realm gorge on our marrow alone?" Catelyn touched his arm. "We cannot let Mal Lister fall. If Seaguard burns, Tywin's supply lines by river are unmolested. A tree beset on all sides must choose which axe it parries first." The Blackfish, leaning on his sword belt, added, "And Balon Greyjoy courts Lannister favor. He means to prove his worth by crippling Tully shipping. Decision cut like steel." Edmure marched 2,000 men west beneath pike banners, leaving Catelyn regent of Riverrun with Ser Desmond's garrison and a mosaic of lesser levies. She bid her brother farewell at sunrise, Brynden clinging to her skirts, Elise wailing from the window slit until the column dwindled. That same dawn, a dusty courier bearing the stag-rampant seal arrived from Storm's End. Stannis Baratheon's missive was blunt as his nature. The bastard pretender and his incestuous mother rule by murder. I claim the Iron Throne by right. Let House Tully declare, or be counted with treason. Catelyn considered the letter over breakfast beneath a chill breeze that teased tapestries. Declare for Stannis and earn Tywin's wrath doubly. Declare for Joffrey and betray Ned's impending doom. Declare for Renly and stand with half the realm's fickle hearts. Or hold river silence and pray storms pass them by. Yet storms did not pass. They broke dams. She penned a response courteous yet non-committal, promising safe passage to any Baratheon envoy desiring parley. Then she summoned scribes and composed fresh letters to Pike, Sunspear, and Highgarden. Appeals to balance fear with profit, coin, grain, hostages offered in marriage. She negotiated futures as though bartering at a dawn market for eels, ignoring the ache in her temples and the knowledge that each line of ink might sell pieces of her children's yet unlived lives. Night after night rain drummed upon the leaded panes. Brynden and Elise slept in her bedchamber now, ringed by guards with crossbows. On the fourth such night, as wind howled like wolves on the ridge, she dreamed of Peter standing upon a high cliff, arms outstretched, ravens swirling about him. He smiled, a boy's sweet, earnest smile, and whispered, "All ladders rise into darkness, but some carry the moon on their back." Then he stepped off the precipice, vanishing into fog. She woke with a cry, heart pounding, children stirring in confusion. She soothed them, humming half-remembered lullabies. Later, by guttering lamp, she crossed to the writing desk and opened Peter's last hard letter. She traced the black diamond ring kept inside, wondering if grief could buy foresight. Somewhere far south, her husband walked corridors where candles smelled of spilled blood and secrets. Could he keep his footing, or would the cliff claim him? Morning brought messengers, a torrent of them. First, Ser Edmure victorious at Seaguard, Ironborn driven back, but at cost. Malister's eldest slain, Bracken outriders deserting to plunder captured Kraken ships. Second, Balon Greyjoy crowned king of the Isles and the North, rebellion declared, Winterfell said to smolder under surprise raid by Victarion's fleet. No word of Ned, only ashes. Third, Stannis sailed from Dragonstone, Renly crowned at Bitterbridge, Lord Tyrell's hosts blooming green across the reach. The board appended faster than any quill could chart. Rivers of ink could not stem rivers of blood. In the Godswood, Catelyn found the blackfish sharpening a dirk beneath the heart tree, red sap dripping like slow tears from its carved mouth. "Uncle," she began, "I need counsel no maester's chain can weigh. The realm tears like cloth between lions, stags, krakens, roses, all clutching to wrap themselves in the same crown. Our children stand in the center." Brynden paused, edge of dirk glinting. "A queen once told me the gods toss men upon battlefield dice. But dice know no justice, only chance. You would have justice. A mother must." He sheathed the blade. "Then make chance your ally. Recall the whisper passages under Harrenhal? Peter knows them. If Ned Stark lives, Littlefinger will send him north or send his head in a box. Either way, the Riverlands must be ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to choose." He took her hand, calloused, steady. "If Ned dies, Robb Stark may call banners. The North and Riverlands allied could drown Tywin between fords. But Tywin will attempt to crush us first. Swift, decisive, before wolves howl. We must deny him that crossing." She saw it then, the strategy writ by rivers themselves. Lure Tywin deeper, stretch his supply lines, cut bridges behind with burning barges at Fairmarket and Maidenpool, then hammer him between Edmure's returning force and Blackfish's sorties from Riverrun. But such gambit demanded one more player. Peter, with coin and crown permission, to stall Lannister ambitions in the south. She exhaled frosted breath. "We gamble children's lives." Brendan's eyes softened. All lords gamble with other men's sons, few with their own. That is why you must lead, you feel the stakes. She nodded, resolve settling like iron cooled. That evening she convened her council. Maester Vyman, Ser Brynden, Ser Desmond, Lord Jonos Bracken, who feigned loyalty under scowl, and Lady Lucinda Piper, a sharp-tongued widow renowned for mustering levies faster than any man grieving his songs. Candles ringed a table strewn with river maps. We abandon fixed defense, Catelyn began. Tywin marches heavy. We dance light. Destroy ferries at crossroads in fell trees across high hart lanes. Deny him forage. Bracken sneered. Easy to say, my lady. Harder when lions torch grain meant for small folk. Hard, she agreed. But harder still when those same lions camp beneath our walls. Better burnt fields than broken gates. Lucinda Piper tapped the parchment. What of King Renly? One word and Highgarden's grain could feed us back come winter. Renly commands hearts, not law, Brynden noted. Stannis commands ships. Catelyn raised a palm. We court neither until Peter moves. If he secures Ned's life, Starks ride south. To our cause. If Ned dies, Robb rides south still, but with flame in his wake. In both, we hold the ford until wolves arrive. Bracken spat. Place our fate in Baelish's quill scratches? A wardling we once thrashed in your father's yard. Catelyn's gaze chilled to glacial steel. That wardling commands the treasury, Harrenhal, and the whispers of every coin lender east of the narrow sea. Mock him at your peril, Lord Jonos. Bracken's jaw worked. He subsided. Rain ceased. Summer's humid breath returned, clinging to chainmail and turning practice yards into swamps. Riverrun bustled with hammering and leather scent as men drilled pike walls 4 ranks deep. Women and children harvested what crops remained, storing grain in cellars lined with river clay. Nightly, Brynden Baelish recited lessons in sigils and river crossings. Elise traced them with sticky jam fingers on her brother's parchment and declared she too would ride a warhorse, preferably pink. Amid those toils, a raven winged to Catelyn's chamber. She broke the seal. Black wax imprinted with a mockingbird perched on a crown of thorns. Inside, the wolf is condemned. The lion sharpens his knife for dawn. Trust the hound that flees fire. Lanterns on the Blackwater by moon's third rise. Be patient, my rose. Her hands trembled. Ned condemned, execution near. The hound that flees fire. Sandor Clegane? Lanterns on the Blackwater. Signal of escape? Peter meant to spirit Ned from the dungeons, perhaps using Clegane's fear of Joffrey as lever. But could she trust it? Or was this another rung on his invisible ladder? She locked the letter in her jewel coffer. Then she penned orders doubling watch at every gate. No visitors admitted without her seal. No couriers ride forth save those she vouched personally. Secrets were best guarded from allies as much as foes. 3 nights later, lanterns indeed bobbed on the Blackwater Bay, so ravens later claimed, and in King's Landing chaos bloomed. Ned Stark vanished from the great September cell, his guards bludgeoned senseless. At dawn, Joffrey's voice cracked with rage across the throne room as he commanded hunts for traitors. The hound was nowhere found, nor Peter Baelish. The small council split like rotted timber. Varys slithered away, Pycelle feigned apoplexy, and Queen Cersei sent riders north and south like hornets shot from a sling. Catelyn heard this news within a day. Relief inundated her, Ned alive, and dread rode its crest. Tywin would strike sooner, not later, to avenge his daughter's humiliation. She summoned every messenger dogged enough to slip past outriders and dispatched word to Edmure. Break camp at Seaguard, join Blackfish at Riverrun within 5 days or we fight alone. Tywin's vanguard lit the night horizon on the very evening of Brynden's 11th name day. Catelyn stood atop Western Tower while winds carried torch glow like a field of fireflies dancing to war drums. Trumpets brayed faintly across river flats. She remembered lullabies sung to her son hours earlier, voice trembling when he blew out candles. Blackfish joined her, spyglass glinting. 7,000 at least, the rest 2 days behind. And Edmure, 3 days, perhaps 4, which left Riverrun's walls and 3,000 men to weather lions. She closed her eyes briefly. Then we stall them at Stone Mill. Stone Mill will not hold a day. It must hold two. She met his gaze. Take 500 archers and the mangrove company of pikemen. Fell trees to choke the causeway. Roman siege mathematics. Every hour gained costs Rome a pound of gold. Tywin's gold thus bleeds before his men do. Brynden chuckled, low and proud. Your mother would have made you maester of Hammerhell. Tonight I will settle for Stork of Stone Mill. They clasped wrists and he departed. Through hours black as pitch, Stone Mill's narrow wooden span groaned under barricades of wagons and carts sodden with pitch. Archers lined the eastern bank. Torch arrows knocked. On the western side, Blackfish led pikemen in silence. Rain drizzling. When Lannister scouts approached, torches painting slithering reflections on flooded shallows, Ser Brynden signaled. Flaming shafts hissed across the dark. Fire bloomed on oil-soaked barricades. Lions recoiled as smoke coiled ravenous. At dawn, Tywin's engineers rolled siege scorpions into range and loosed bolts the size of oaks. Wagon wheels splintered. Blackfish ordered his men behind hedgehog stakes. Under forced march he held until midday, then pulled back by barge, burning the mill to skeletal ruin. 2 of his boats capsized under Lannister arrow fire. 30 men drowned in muddy churn. But the river, swollen by summer rain, carried charred beams downstream, jamming further crossings. News of Stone Mill's stand reached Riverrun by fast skiff. Tywin delayed an entire day constructing pontoons, a day closer to Edmure's return. In Riverrun proper, Catelyn subdivided remaining levies. Desmond's heavy infantry to guard Inner Bailey, Piper archers along curtain walls, Bracken's sour spears garrisoning eastern Sallyport. Lucinda Piper oversaw boiling oil caches, her voice like a cracked whip above cauldron hiss. Brynden Baelish, Bard F. Rumbattle by his age, helped the infirm drag bundles of rushes to stopgap arrow slits. Elise followed him like a red-haired shadow clutching a ragdoll knight. That evening Catelyn led the garrison in a prayer before the Sept's weeping candles. No grand sermon, only a mother's voice asking the Seven to send sleep to the sleepless and mercy to the fallen. Men hardened by a dozen border skirmishes wiped eyes with sooty knuckles. Afterward she knelt alone at the maiden's altar and felt the marble cold beneath her brow. Whatever price, spare the children. No voice answered save faint thunder to the west. Edmure arrived a day later than hoped, marching at dusk under banners ragged from Seaguard winds. His men looked gaunt, half rations stretching thin, but their cheers filled ramparts like new-forged bells. Catelyn embraced him at the gate, relief flooding limbs near numb. Tywin's main force crested horizon, scarcely 3 hours behind the Blackfish. Riders draped in crimson and shining steel. They arrayed upon the far side of the Red Fork, campfires blooming while trumpets blared demands for surrender. Catelyn donned chain shirt beneath surcoat, walked to the Barbican balcony, and listened. A herald in lion livery shouted terms. Open gates, yield hostages, the children, Edmure, the Blackfish, renounce treason to the crown, and Tywin would spare small folk. The Blackfish spat into the moat. Edmure reached for bowstring. Catelyn lifted a hand. Then she stepped to the parapet, voice clear as river ice. Tell Lord Tywin our gates do not yield to oaths forged in blood we did not shed. Tell him Riverrun remembers the trident, where lions hid while men bled for a king grown mad. Tell him mothers stand upon these walls. Let him ask his own if he would fling torch upon children's dreams. The herald shifted, uncertain how to record words not bound by protocol. Catelyn finished. Tell him the river flows, the trout swims, and stone endures. The herald rode back. An hour later scorpions rolled into range. War drums began their slow thunder. The first day's assault tested outer walls. Catapults hurling stones that smashed merlins. Ladders swarming with mailed men repelled by oil fire streaming. Piper's archers felled hundreds. The moat churned red beneath floating shields. But one tower lost its rampart when a flaming projectile struck storeroom of lamp oil, detonating staves. Catelyn personally formed bucket chains, dousing blaze before it breached second level. Her palms blistered under heated iron, but she bound them and kept issuing orders. That night, Tywin's envoys offered parley, the usual charade concealing spies, but she refused them entry, sending small beer instead to slake the wounded's thirst. In her solar, she collapsed into chair cushions crusted with dust. Mind spinning. Desmond reported dwindling arrow stores. Lucinda warned cisterns could taint if bombardment shattered roof tiles. Catelyn closed eyes. "Peter, where are you?" As if summoned, a breathless boy burst inside holding a folded square of silk, mockingbird stitched in black thread. She broke the seam. Inside, a note scrawled hasty but unshaken. "The wolf rides north with the dog at his side. Meet them at 7 streams on Crescent Moon. Hold the lion 3 days more." 3 days. She exhaled, spine stiffening. Wolves, a host from Winterfell? Robb soaring south, perhaps with Great John and Karstark banners. And the dog, Sandor Clegane, rumored vanished. Had Peter delivered Ned and now escorted Robb? Or had he traded father for son? Questions were blades. Answers must wait. She summoned Blackfish and Edmure. 3 days, she said, note concealed by fist. "We hold thrice dawn's light, then we strike west." Edmure's eyes gleamed. "A sortie across ford? Part feint, part hammer. We open sluice gates at dawn of 3rd day, flood the outer ditch, lure them to higher ground near Old Red Oak. Bryndon's light horse then strike supply wagons.
Lions starvent, wolves arrivent."
Blackfish grinned wolf-like. "A river's teeth." 2nd day, Tywin focused on south wall, rams shattering oak-bound gate timbers. Bracken's spears braced the inner arch. Catelyn's own arms ached from hauling fresh beams to wedge across portal. By noon, the rams had forced a breach but found choke point where boiling pitch rained from murder holes. The smell of scorched flesh clung even to veterans' cloaks. Amid smoke and roar, Brynden and Elise huddled in chapel loft under guard. Catelyn visited only briefly, kissing their brows, promising sunrise again. She carried their scent, straw and honey cakes, back to ramparts like personal ward sigils. By dusk, Tywin's engineers drew back, leaving 200 dead ramming crew. Trumpets fell silent, lions licking wounds. But Catelyn knew day 3 would bring fury akin to First Men's forging. That night, she met her captains in crypt gallery beneath keep, lanterns throwing grim bars of light between marble effigies. She unveiled Peter's note and plan. Some balked at trusting absent coin lord. Others argued wolves might never arrive. But desperation forged unanimity: hold, flood, strike. At pre-dawn hush of 3rd day, clouds tore to reveal thin crescent. Catelyn, in mail and cloak trimmed simple, climbed to Waterhouse Tower with Maester Vyman. Down in shadowed trench, Tywin's men assembled fresh rams and siege towers. War horns lowed across chill air. Within walls, Riverrun's defenders braced. Catelyn waited until sunlight kissed brazier stands, then nodded. Vyman pulled lever. Great sluice gates groaned apart where tumblestone diverted through mill runs. Water thundered down chute, spilling into moat, overflow channels, and the depression Tywin's sappers had dug for camp latrines. Within minutes, the ground before South Wall became sucking marsh. The lions advanced regardless, pontoons, ladders, shields glittering. When mud swallowed their boots, archers on battlements loosed. Men floundered, drowning under burdensome mail. Siege towers stuck fast, unable to close final yards. Then from western treeline beyond Tywin's baggage train erupted a brazen war cry. The silver trout of Blackfish, Edmure's red fork, and the manticore badge of Seaguard Selsail's Peter had secretly bankrolled. Light horse crashed through Wagon Park, torches flaring. Stores of grain and wine ignited. The lions roared confusion. In that chaos, Riverrun's west postern burst wide. Ser Desmond led reserve heavy infantry across shallows lined by felled willow trunks, striking Tywin's flank. Piper archers, hidden in reeds, sent volleys at engineers scrambling to man scorpions. Tywin himself rallied gold-clad guards, trying to form shield wall upon a hillock speared with banner poles. But horns answered from north now, a deep booming unlike river calls. Over ridge poured gray and white standards stitched with direwolf. Robb Stark rode at front astride a gray stallion, his cloak sodden and eyes blazing. Behind him thundered Karstark cavalry, Greatjon's mailed fists, and ranks of tall archers wearing shaggy furs despite summer heat. The lions found themselves encircled. River at back, mud before, fires among wagons, wolves to north, trout to west and east. For one heartbeat the field froze, an eerie stillness broken only by crackle of flame and distant cries of wounded. Then chaos exploded anew. Robb's cavalry slammed into Lannister right. Edmure's infantry surged left. Blackfish spearheaded charge at center. Catelyn, atop battlements, watched banners clash like torn pages of some terrible book. She prayed Brynden and Elise slept still, safe from echoes of slaughter. Tywin fought with grim efficiency, ordering withdrawal across improvised pontoon bridging far shallows. Under covering volleys, his household knights carved corridor through Karstark lines. But supply wagons burned, mules ran shrieking, engineers deserted. By sunset, Lannister host lay broken on banks downstream, survivors fleeing south toward Crackclaw Point. Riverrun's gates opened at last. Catelyn rode across fields still steaming from river's blood, meeting Robb amid wreckage of a golden lion standard trampled into mud. He dismounted, eyes red-rimmed from sleepless march. They embraced, the aunt's embrace holding boy hardly older than her own son, yet bearing crown of frost and death. "Father?" she asked. "Alive," Robb rasped. "Hidden outside Maidenpool. Lord Baelish arranged escort with the Hound. We come to fetch him north, but first we rode to you." Tears blurred her sight. Relief threatened to buckle her knees, but pride propped them firm. "The river thanks the wolf," she said, voice thick. Robb's lips quirked wry. "And the wolf thanks the mockingbird, though none trust his song." She squeezed his gloved hand. Sometimes trust matters less than timing. Night fell. Campfires dotted field, now guarded by joint Stark-Tully patrols. Within Riverrun's great hall, mead flowed for wounded and victors alike, but Catelyn stole away to chapel loft where her children waited. Brynden leapt into her arms. Elise tugged at her mother's scorched cloak. "Did we win?" Brynden whispered. "We stood," she answered, "and the river still flows." They slept curled beside her that night as she listened to wine slip through arrow slits, carrying distant howls of wolves. She thought of Peter wherever he walked. Did he watch same moon, count same cost? Did he clutch ledgers inked not with numbers but with lives marshaled toward dream ascending? She toyed with black diamond ring upon its chain, remembering promise carved into nights long ago. "I will rise for you." He had risen, played both lion and wolf until strands snapped just so. Yet ladders built upon shadows might still crumble. At dawn she would ride with Robb to meet Ned at Seven Streams, children in tow, banners half furled. War did not end with one victory, storms bred other storms. But rivers could redirect storms, carve new courses across maps carved by old hands. She closed her eyes, breathing scent of straw and lavender from Elise's hair. "Whatever comes, I stand the current," she vowed. For rivers may bend, but a mother's love remains their deepest channel, unbroken even when world's tides conspire. Beyond shutterpane, first pale light tinged clouds rose gold. Somewhere out there, Peter Baelish stepped onto another rung. Toward dawn or downfall she could not know. But she would meet that dawn with steel or bomb, shaping fate not for coins or crowns, but for the two small heartbeats pressed against her sides, and for the man waiting on a moonlit ford, walking home from the edge of 1,000 knives. The halls of Riverrun never truly slept. Yet on the dawn that followed the lion's rout, an uncanny hush lingered beneath the clatter of mops and stretcher-bearers. Catelyn walked those silent currents like a memory carried by the stone itself, her mail hauberk creaking softly under a plain wool cloak. The air smelled of wet ash and crushed grass, a victory bought dear and sorrow deferred. Each doorway she passed revealed another wound to measure. Men missing limbs swaddled in linen, children kneeling at cots muttering litanies for fathers caught beneath collapsing battlements, maesters turning bloody bandages with the calm of men who had forgotten how to weep. Outside, the sky had cleared to a brazen cobalt, as though the gods themselves wished the carnage displayed in perfect detail. Beyond the wall walks Robb Stark's host formed restless encampments, wolves uneasy in a trout's castle. Standards flapped in the steady river breeze. The leaping trout, the dire wolf, the kraken taken as trophy, the manticore of Seagard Sellswords. Singers would carve the tale into verses, she knew. Yet songs simplified. Songs forgot the stink. At the base of the East Tower she found Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, seated on a barrel while a leather-faced squire tightened a fresh dressing around his forearm. A Lannister crossbow bolt had grazed the muscle just above the elbow. Blood still soaked through linen, but his face betrayed only annoyance at the inconvenience. "Reports?" Catelyn asked. His grin flashed white through the grime. "Fewer lions than last night, and more boats floating downriver stuffed with their armor. Tywin retreats toward Harrenhal. Scouts say he has no food for half his numbers." He flexed fingers experimentally. Rivs cut their pride deep. She folded arms over her chest. "Deep enough that they'll not turn and strike again before we march? For now." The Blackfish's voice lowered. "But Harrenhal eats garrisons and spits them sharper. Tywin still has teeth." A caw sounded above, and they tilted their heads as a raven wheeled, spiraling toward the rookery. Catelyn's pulse beat quicker. Every black wing might bear news that could rip the fragile lattice of plans just forged. She left Brynden to his bandaging and climbed the winding stair within the tower until the rookery smell of guano and grain dust filled her lungs. Maester Vyman met her on the landing, scroll in hand. "From the crossing," he said. "Walder Frey." Her lips thinned. "Late as always." The parchment crackled as she unrolled it. Lord Walder made apologies for failing to dispatch his levies in time, blamed the crone's cough and swollen rivers, offered congratulations on repelling Tywin, hinted at recompense should Tully and Stark hosts still wish safe passage. Beneath the florid script loomed a postscript in smaller hand. Rumor of Renly Baratheon's marriage to Marjorie Tyrell 2 nights passed at Highgarden, their banners now numbering 50,000. Another thorn in the great lion-stag tangle. Catelyn exhaled through her teeth. The late Lord Frey remains punctual in opportunism, at least. Vyman's brows rose. "How shall we answer?" "Not yet," she said. "We ride for 7 streams before sunfall." 7 streams, my lady?" Lord Robb assembled his captains. He wishes what any son wishes, to rush on the next fight. But our course bends first to family." She looked beyond the tower slit to where the river fork shimmered. "My husband waits." It took the better part of midday to prepare. Robb argued, gentle but firm, that his force must strike Tywin before the lion reached Harrenhal. Edmure countered, declaring river crossings too swollen for safe pursuit and supply lines stretched. The Blackfish sided with Catelyn. A victory purchased without the Stark patriarch present could fracture the fragile unity binding wolf and trout. In the end, Robb bowed to necessity, dispatching Great John Umber and Lord Karstark to harry Tywin's rear while he, Catelyn, Brynden, and a retinue of 500 rode light toward 7 streams. They traveled fast upon roads still rutted by Lannister wagons, the carcasses of horses drawing clouds of flies that buzzed like a dirge chorus. Brynden Baelish and little Elise rode in a covered cart near the center of column, guarded by Lady Lucinda Piper's hand-picked archers. The boy pressed his face to the damp canvas flap, eager eyes devouring every bend of landscape. Blackened siege towers abandoned in marsh, a trebuchet cracked like a giant's rib cage where wolves had chewed nightfire. Elise hummed nonsense tunes, stroking her ragdoll's yarn hair. Catelyn rode at Robb's side upon her bay mare. They spoke little the first miles. Grief for Ned pressed too raw against their thoughts. But as afternoon lengthened into honeyed light, the quiet shifted, ripening into something like anticipation. "How far did you ride to reach us?" she asked at last. "Near 60 leagues in 2 days." Robb's voice carried both fatigue and pride. "We left father with Lord Mallister's cousins at Maidenpool. Safe enough until we return." A muscle twitched near his jaw. "The Hound keeps watch." Sandor Clegane, a man once sworn to Joffrey, now rumored deserter, guarding Ned Stark. The irony tasted sharp as sour wine. Did father speak? He asked after you. He asked after Bran. Robb's voice faltered, and he said to trust no banner that flaps too eagerly toward peace. Catelyn frowned. He knows of Peter? Only that Baelish bribed a half-dozen gold cloaks, slipped chains from father's wrists, and bundled him through the pig-run gate with all the subtlety of a juggler's toss. Robb allowed himself a fleeting smile. Father said Peter bowed like a tradesman making payment, then vanished into the night before thanks could be given. She felt warmth stir, relief laced with worry. Peter moved yet in shadow, but for now his dagger had cut a chain rather than a throat. They pressed on. Dusk painted the sky in lilac and ember. Fireflies sparked above reed pools where frogs croaked in raucous chorus. At a ruined watchtower they made camp, too close to enemy lands for comfort but far from any lion scouts. Brynden Tully took first watch, pacing the perimeter with bow strung and a cloth-bound arrow to dampen shine. In the command tent, Catelyn spread maps by lantern glow while Robb peeled off his gauntlets. The tent flap parted. Maester Vyman entered bearing a small tin. He applied salve to Robb's chafed hands, muttering about callous seeds, then withdrew, leaving mother and son alone amid parchment rustle and the faint chatter of distant sentries. Catelyn studied the quiver of shadow under Robb's eyes. "You did not sleep on the ride. I dreamt of axes in the dark," he admitted. "When I blink, I see them still." She brushed a damp curl from his brow. "No lord ever mastered war while awake alone. Dreams remind us what daylight forgets." He squeezed her hand. "Once we have father safe, we march to Winterfell. The north bleeds from Greyjoy raids. Pike must pay." "How many fronts can any host fight at once?" she asked quietly. "As many as duty demands." Yet beneath the iron she sensed the boy of 16 summers still learning the weight of every word he spoke aloud. She kissed his temple. "Sleep, Robb. Tomorrow we reach Seven Streams. After that the world tilts." He closed his eyes. Catelyn eased from the tent, letting flap fall. Overhead, stars embroidered velvet blackness. The river whispered unseen. She walked until campfires dwindled behind and knelt upon a rise where moonlight silvered the grasses. She had no gods would hear, no heart tree. Instead she pressed fingers into earth still damp from recent rains and whispered to the seven, to the old gods, maybe to the nameless currents themselves. "Let him live. Let my children see both their parents share sunlight again." The night answered only with cricket song. Seven Streams lay where rivulets braided a flat sweep of meadow into islands of alder and pale birch. Long ago, petty kings built dikes and mills. Now moss-choked wheels sagged in the water like fallen crowns. Catelyn's column approached from North Bank at dawn, mist curling knee-high. Scouts signaled no sign of Lannister banners. Only a small camp of half a dozen men-at-arms sheltered beneath willow canopies near the old ferry quay. When Catelyn and Robb rode closer, torches flared to life. Sandor Clegane stepped into view first, helm under arm, burned face bared. His eyes flicked over Robb, then settled on Catelyn with wary respect. "He waits there." He jerked thumb toward a cloaked figure seated upon an overturned skiff. "Didn't like to lie down. Bones ache." Catelyn dismounted before she realized her legs were moving. Each step quickened until she reached the skiff. Ned Stark rose stiffly, gray cloak hanging loose around shoulders narrower than memory. The beard, now laced with silver, hid the gaunt lines of cheeks, yet his eyes, ice pale, thawed upon her.
Cat.
His voice cracked on the one syllable. She touched his cheek, found it warm, real. Tears blurred everything but the chore of his gaze. "My love," she whispered, and for one breath the war retreated. Robb's boots splashed as he strode forward. Father and son clasped arms, foreheads touching. Afterward Brynden Baelish approached shyly. Ned knelt despite protesting ribs and ruffled the boy's hair. Elise curtsied, then giggled when Ned tucked a bronze coin behind her ear. A conjurer's trick he once played on Bran, but attachments soon surrendered to grim logistics. Under a canvas awning Ned recounted his escape. Gold cloaks bribed, Varys providing keys in the realm's best interest, Pycelle dosing sleepy guards with milk of the poppy, Sandor Clegane leading them through Rat's Road. Peter Baelish orchestrated the parts with the calm of a man settling tavern debt. He said he preferred investments that breathe, Ned finished. Whatever his game, it bought us life. They spread fresh maps. With Tywin retreating east and Greyjoys hammering north, Ned urged Robb to split host. A northern contingent to Winterfell, Riverlords holding the Trident. A strike south only once banners from Vale or Reach declared open intent. Robb bristled at delay. He wished to ride lightning into King's Landing, but Ned's voice cut like frost. A war won rashly can be lost in aftermath. We defend our lands first. We choose our allies. We do not dance to any mockingbird's tune. Catelyn watched father and son circle strategy and felt an old ache ease. With Ned alive, every burden weighed half again lighter. Yet joy was fragile. Scouting horns blared from northern rise. Riders thundered back. A Greyjoy vanguard 10 miles off. A dozen longships nosing upriver. Smoke trailing behind burning farmsteads. Balon sought to sever the North's road home, perhaps in league with Tywin's retreat. Catelyn gathered children close while captains shouted orders. Ned's nasal fracture had not fully healed, yet he cinched breastplate regardless. "The gods will not grant us 2 gentle dawns in a row," he said. Robb's hand fell upon his sword pommel. "Then we give dawn its claws." They arrayed on meadows firm patches where water stood knee-deep in places. Greyjoy reavers advanced in a crescent, black sails furled, padded jerkins slick with river mist. Drums beat time to Ord advance as Ironborn leapt into shallows, axes high. Their captain, a rangy kin of Euron Crow's eye, brandished a harpoon tipped with shark teeth. Ned Stark, though weary, took command of the left flank, Sandor Clegane beside him swinging a bastard sword two-handed. Robb led center cavalry across drier hummocks. Brynden Tully held skirmishers to right near alder stands. Catelyn ushered children and supply carts behind a knoll where Lucinda Piper's archers kept watch. The clash unfolded in flashes. Sunlight on Axehead, the wet crunch of blade through mail, reaver chants drowned beneath wolf howls. Clegane roared like the hounds of his sigil, cutting a swath through shielded ranks. Ned parried, slipped, drove steel through a Greyjoy's thigh. Water frothed crimson, reeds bowing as though in prayer. On the right, Ironborn attempted to flank, using skiffs to slip downstream, but Blackfish's archers loosed shafts that found throats despite rising breeze. One skiff careened, spilling men into the eddy. Brynden's spearmen waded forward, finished them with thrusts beneath rib. Yet reavers fought with the frenzy of men promised salt wives for every fallen foe. When their captain hurled his harpoon, it struck Ned's shield, shattering oak boards and wrenching his arm. Robb spurred forward, sword clanging off helm before slashing the man's artery. The Ironborn line faltered, then broke, men striving for boats that drifted, hulls pierced by arrows. By midday the field lay quiet save gull cries. 40 enemies strewn dead, half as many taken captive. 24 of Robb's own fallen, more wounded. Among them Lucinda Piper's nephew, struck by a thrown hammer while guarding the children's cart. Catelyn knelt where the boy lay breathing ragged. She pressed linen to pulsing wound and whispered comfort until the life left him. Victory tasted of iron and river silt. They burned pyres on an islet that evening. Ned's eyes mirrored flames. Each spark recalled the dragonfire he had watched consume Brandon and Ricard in King's Landing so many years past. Catelyn laced her fingers with his until the flames dwindled to embers. Before dawn next day they ferried Ned, Brynden Baelish, Elise, and a small retinue across the Green Fork on commandeered skiffs. A cog awaited downriver under Mal Lister colors, its captain bribed thrice over to sail for White Harbor and then Winterfell. Ned resisted leaving Catelyn's side, but she pressed a sealed letter into his palm. Promises of reunion, accounts of the Riverland's needs, love stronger than any tide. He caught her cheeks between scarred hands. "Guard them all," he said. "And you guard the North," she returned. They kissed once, briefly, the taste of salt tears shared. Then he embraced Robb, murmured words only mother and son could hear, and boarded the cog. Sandor Clegane followed, grim, silent, yet gentle as he guided Brynden and Elise up the gangplank. He lingered a moment, regarding Catelyn. "Tell the bird I'm only half his pawn," he said. She inclined her head. "He knows better than to count on leashed hounds." Clegane barked a laugh, then turned away. The cog unfurled sails dyed Mal-Lister purple. River current bore it slow, stately, until bend and morning fog swallowed the mast. Catelyn wrapped arms around herself. The quayside felt emptier than an echo. Robb gave her little time for grief. With Ned safe, he intended to will south, harry Lannister camps along the Trident, then choose whether to strike Harrenhal or march for King's Landing depending on Renly and Stannis' positions. But the river lords lacked stores for long pursuit. Fields lay flooded, mills burned. Catelyn proposed securing grain via Oldstones and the Twins until Tyrell convoys could be coaxed upriver. That required an envoy to Highgarden, and she volunteered, lady trappings, envoy's courtesy. Mothers need to see war ended swiftly. Robb protested, yet grudgingly agreed when Blackfish insisted a mature voice might disarm Lord Mace's vanity more than any sword. Brynden Tully would accompany her with 200 riders. They would slip west of Harrenhal, skirt the Red Mountains, and emerge in the Reach before Tywin's scouts could guess their target. On the eve of departure, a courier arrived bearing Peter's sigil. He brought a single folio of parchment, edges stained with wine. Catelyn read by torchlight in her tent.
That ist cut.
The game tilts again. Stannis raises banners. Renly parades roses. Joffrey howls behind mother's skirts. I have taken possession of Harrenhal, as was promised, yet found it a shell gnawed by carrion crows. I dress the hall in silks and wait for kings to court my favor. Tywin slithers east, nursing wounds you delivered. He will come to me for shelter. I will give it, under terms. You ride to Highgarden, I applaud. Mace will feast you. Olenna will measure you. Loras will pledge shining oaths. Whisper that Baelish silver can fund Reach granaries while war chokes trade routes. Whisper that the river shares its bounty with gardens that feed more than roses. A jest for you. What is a gate when no wall remains? Answer, opportunity. Until we meet again beneath towers of black glass. P***. She burned the letter after memorizing its twistings. The next dawn she rode west, a river's daughter steering toward the sea of wheat and golden roses. Days later, Harrenhal's monstrous towers loomed above the ash-gray waters of the God's Eye. Peter Baelish stood upon a balcony, fingers steepled, watching Tywin Lannister's diminished host approach across the broken causeway. Ravens drowsed on parapets. Their droppings streaked stone like frozen tears. Beside him, a Braavosi bard plucked a soft dirge, each note a silver fish darting through gloom. Peter's thoughts wandered, north to Riverrun where Catelyn's fire burned, west to Oldstones where secret envoys might soon pass, south to King's Landing where Joffrey's tantrums cracked ceilings. His ladder stretched upward, rung upon rung, yet he felt the height now, the emptiness beneath each step. Tywin's column reached the Barbican. Trumpets sounded dull, morale low. Peter smiled, a polite curve that hid knives. He descended spiral stairs to greet the lion. Tywin dismounted stiffly, eyes like dull topaz. I trust you have provisions, Lord Baelish. My men are half-starved thanks to your wife's clever flooding. Peter bowed. My wife spins currents as deftly as any merling, but Harrenhal's larders brim. Consider yourself welcome, at negotiated rates. Tywin's brows rose fractionally. You charge allies? A steward must steward. Coin for grain, courtesy for counsel. Only chaos is free, my lord. And chaos, he gestured to the crumbling courtyard, has already claimed her portion. Tywin regarded him, measuring worth. Very well, we will speak terms. As servants led the Lannister lord inside, Peter watched the sky bruise into twilight. One raven flapped eastward, carrying false reports of Tywin's strength to Cersei. Another would soon wing south with whispers to Varys about a Reach envoy and river grain. Threads weaving, knots tightening. In his pocket, he fingered a locket. silver petals cupping a tear of tourmaline. He remembered the feel of Catelyn's hand when he slid it on her finger, the silence in her eyes that promised hope, but never love. Yet hope had proven enough to propel empires. "What is a gate when no wall remains?" he murmured, answering his own riddle. "A doorway to anywhere." He turned toward the vast ruin of Harrenhal's Hall, ready to parley with lions and ghosts alike. Far west, Catelyn's party reached the ruins of Oldstones by moonrise. Tents pitched amid fallen pillars, they ate cold salt beef and studied constellations glimmering through arches once built by dead kings. The Blackfish walked the perimeter while she tucked blankets around Brynden and Elise. The children slept quickly, lulled by cicada drone. Catelyn alone remained wakeful. She sat upon a cracked sarcophagus reputed to hold Christopher IV and gazed toward the distant lights of Twins Towers flickering like twin candles. Another river to cross, another lord to barter with. She traced a thumb along the stone's worn inscription. "Time is the spear none can parry." Wind whispered through grass, carrying scent of wild mint. She closed her eyes and pictured Ned's face, soft in candle shine aboard the cog. She pictured Peter's smile, half shadow, half sun. She pictured her children's future, braided by choices she made among ruins and roses. Time's spear flew, but rivers long learned to bend around spears. She would bend too around grief, around love, around the sharp edges of every ladder built by men convinced only they could climb. In the stillness before dawn, she heard the river far below murmur against stone, ceaseless, tireless. It was the same river that had cradled Riverrun, mirrored Brandon's laughter, swallowed Tywin's ambitions, and carried Ned toward home. It would flow on when songs forgot all their names. She rose, breathing deep. Tomorrow wild roses and court intrigues. Next week perhaps siege or parley. Yet tonight she held a moment unscripted, a quiet between thunderclaps. Catelyn bowed her head, whispered promise to the river. For herself, for House Tully, for the North and all children caught in currents. Then she returned to camp, leaving the ruins to moonlight and memory. Beyond horizon, twin storms gathered, one in the reach beneath banners of stag and rose, another in the shadow of Harrenhal's melted towers. Between them ran a river, unbroken, patient, and a mother who had sworn to see it carve a path no crown could dam. Warm summer rain pattered off the old stones of Oldstones by the time Catelyn stirred the camp to life. Dawn came hesitantly, seeping lavender and pearl between cloud banks, illuminating broken pillars that once had propped a king's feast hall now choked with ivy and bird nests. Blackfish Brynden oversaw the dismantling of tents, his graveled voice barking orders that rolled across the ruin like drumbeats, while the river below muttered on. Within the covered cart, Brynden Baelish and Elise rubbed sleep from gummy eyes, the boy impatient to continue and the girl murmuring about dream nights with sugar-plum shields. Catelyn walked among her people, cloak shedding dew beads, and exchanged quiet words. A compliment here, a squeezed shoulder there. Battle joy had ebbed, leaving behind raw nerves and pockets of grief, but her presence knit the edges of morale. Lucinda Piper fell in beside her, brow creased under a steel-rimmed coif. "Road to the Twins is clear enough," Lucinda reported. "Scouts saw only sheep and hares. Lord Walder has yet to move his levies." Catelyn nodded. "Good. The fewer swords gathered under those towers, the simpler our parley." She glanced toward the children's cart, smile faint. But simple is seldom Lord Frey's tongue. They rode in column by mid-morning, following an ancient cobbled caltrop of a road that threaded misty hillocks and pockets of bog. Flowering gorse scented the damp air with honey and spice. Dragonflies flitted in sapphire blurs. Edmure had remained at Riverrun to marshal wounded and oversee harvest, dispatching a dozen swift longboats to chase rumor of further ironborn raids. The thought of her brother, young lord newly bruised by victory, clung to Catelyn as persistent as sweat. Toward dusk, the first turrets of the Twins punctured the horizon. Two squat giants of stone rising from opposite banks of the Green Fork, bridged by a covered span of timber as thick as a keep's wall. Pennants drooped in the desultory breeze. Pale blue fields seeded with gray towers. Beneath them, The ford's waters churned muddy, swollen by upstream storms. Even from a mile off, Catelyn felt the weight of years and grudges settled upon that river. They halted beneath the shadow of the East Bank gatehouse, where lesser frays in tarnished mail waited. A herald, Ser Stevrin, eldest son, cheeks pitted like road gravel, offered stiff courtesies. "Lord Father bids you to sup," he said, voice dry as dust. "Terms of passage may then be spoken." Brynden Tully shot Catelyn a sidelong glance meaning care. She dismounted, straightened cloak stripes, and motioned Lucinda to remain with the children. Within, the keep smelled of damp rushes and roast onion. Long tables sagged beneath trenchers of barley stew, lamprey pies, and stacks of onion-crusted bread. Yet the platter's edges betrayed flies already feasting. Lord Walder sat enthroned at Hall's head like a bent stalk of wheat left uncut, watery eyes snagged by a predator's gleam. Speech began politely enough, reckonings of how bravely Fry outriders had scouted, false laments over missing the glorious stand at Riverrun. Catelyn listened with patient poise, sipping watered wine. When Walder demanded bride shares for 3 of his grandsons and Hint offered free crossing in return, she allowed silence to stretch, the hall creaking like a mill. Eventually she set cup down, spoke evenly. House Frey's bloodline is myriad, yet alliances must be chosen with the care of a mason selecting keystones. I can promise betrothal of my daughter Elise when she comes of age, under condition her dowry remains within the Riverlands and she inherit lands contiguous to Halfbridge village. Her tone brooked no argument. Until such hour, you shall receive half the toll in coin you seek, payable once our envoys reach Highgarden safely. A hush rippled. Walder's lip curled. Wagering my blessing on roses, are we? On roses and wheat that feed your garrison, she replied. Without grain, a bridge is a throat starved. With it, a bridge is the realm's lifeblood. The old man stared, weighing future gold against ancient spite. At length he gave a phlegmy laugh. Done. I'll have the girl's hand and the coin when wheat ships dock. Catelyn inclined her head just enough to mark courtesy but not submission. Contracts were penned that night. Brynden Tully set his seal, and by first light their column clattered across wooden planks echoing like distant drums. Brynden Baelish peeked through cart slats. Elise giggled when gulls swooped overhead. Lucinda offered a rare grin. "One bridge down, my lady." Beyond the twins, the river road angled southwest, hugging knolls patched with bluebells and bracken. Summer's heat gathered, pressing damp linen to skin. At night, they camped near ruined watchposts, singing low to keep spirits. Catelyn shared bread with her uncle, poring over maps by torch. "Our route skirts Harrenhal by 50 leagues, Brynden said, tapping parchment. "If Tywin digs into that carcass, we avoid his scouts." "And Peter's snare," she murmured. The blackfish eyed her. "Does your trust run thin?" "Trust must bend like willow, too stiff and it snaps." She folded map, tucking it beside tourmaline ring she wore on chain. They crossed into the foothills of the Red Mountains after 3 days, passing villages stripped of men but flush with uneasy women who traded eggs for news. Catelyn learned Renly's green host advanced north along Rose Road, while Stannis' ships captured Storm's End after lightning assault. The Baratheon brothers angled toward confrontation, tension between stag antlers crackling like storm-charged air. Every new scrap of gossip widened the gulf of uncertainty. One Twilight Scouts returned bearing word of Lannister outriders hunting grain carts south of Harrenhal. Brynden ordered a detour through pine-sheathed ridges where narrow goat tracks threaded precarious ravines. They traveled by moon until horses staggered, then huddled among the roots of sentinel pines. Wind sighed like ghosts overhead. In deepest night, Catelyn awoke to muffled sobs. Elise had roused from nightmares of burning ladders, tiny fists clutching at nothing. Catelyn held her daughter against breast, hummed soft Riverlands lullabies until shivers eased. Brynden Baelish watched, silent, eyes reflecting starlight. When Catelyn tucked children back beside sleeping chests of furs, she sat alone by dying embers. She thought of how each mile laid another stratum of memory onto small minds and prayed these whispers of war would not calcify into bitterness. Come dawn, they emerged onto a rolling plateau where poppies painted slopes blood red and goldfinches argued in thornbush. A road forked, south toward Highgarden's scented valleys, west toward Old Oak and the Arbor Wine Coast. Standing stones older than Undulls jutted from heath like broken fingers. Brynden claimed they marked a first men barrow. Here they encountered the first outriders in Tyrell livery. Green cloaks trimmed with golden threads riding sleek dapple mares. Ser Colin Florent, nephew to Mace's second wife, greeted them with rehearsed warmth, flanked by half a dozen spearmen. Lord Tyrell heard rumor of a river envoy and bids escort in safety. He announced, eyes lingering on Catelyn's weather-marked mail then flicking to Brynden's ragged sleeve. Catelyn smiled courteously. House Tyrell's generosity perfumes even hard roads. She introduced her party, emphasizing Elise and young Brynden, the prospective fry match. The hint of marital alliance raised Florent's brow. He dispatched a rider ahead with news. They rode into Highgarden 2 days later through orchards heavy with peach and plum, scents so lush they felt almost obscene after battlefields. The castle itself rose like layered petals. White marble turrets wreathed in climbing roses of every hue. Banners snapped alone. Ramparts. The golden rose on green, the blue forget-me-not of House Florent, and a new banner quartering the stag of Baratheon with the Tyrell rose. Renly's claim. Inside the sunlit court, Lord Mace Tyrell lumbered forward, cheeks flushed crimson with satisfaction. He clasped Catelyn's hands like a favored cousin rediscovered. Lady Catelyn, a delight. The songs of your victory at Riverrun reached us richer than any minstrel's flourish. He gestured grandly to servants hovering with platters of sugared lemon cakes. Come, refresh yourselves. We shall talk of grain and honor over supper. Catelyn accepted with measured grace, but her gaze drifted to the upper balcony where the Queen of Thorns herself observed. Olenna Redwine, small and wizened, expression sharp as hawk beak. Their eyes met. Catelyn gave a slight nod. Olenna tilted her head, acknowledging dance begun. That evening, under chandeliers fashioned of glass vines, negotiations unfolded. Mace regaled with overblown war anecdotes, while Renly, recently wed to Marjorie yet temporarily absent on campaign, loomed ghost-like in conversation. Catelyn detailed the Riverlands' plight, flooding of fields, need for seed grain, Tywin's harassment, Greyjoy raids. She offered Baelish-backed loans secured against harvest and shipping rights, silver of cunning design. Mace puffed cheeks, pondering cost. But Olenna, silent until then, tapped Cain sharply. Proposals smell sweetest when trimmed of thorny specifics, my lord's son. She fixed Catelyn with wry gaze. What guarantee the river will return our gold once winter bites? Catelyn sipped wine before replying. Because the river remembers those who water its banks. Highgarden grain ensures a debt of gratitude that no coin can match. And the phrase, should you require crossford privilege, will heed our voice. Olenna's lips pursed. And Baelish? That little silver-tongued lizard coils round any purse it fancies. He is my husband, Catelyn said. He protects what I pledge. But his coin is but one thread. I offer alliance of need. Should Stag of Renly falter, our river stands between Tywin and Reach. Thought rippled across Olenna's lined face like breeze over lavender fields. At last she leaned toward Mace. Your lordship's orchard cannot fruit if burned by Lannister wildfire. Seeds are cheaper than ashes, I think. Mace grunted, defeated by mother's thorns. Later, parchments were drawn. 30 granaries worth of barley and oats to be shipped upriver under Mal Lister escort. Half paid in coin from Baelish reserves, half in future toll remissions. Lucinda signed as witness, Ser Colin as courier. Brynden Baelish watched solemnly. First brush with realms of quill instead of sword. During a private audience post-supper, Olenna pulled Catelyn aside to a moonlit colonnade. Jasmine scented the air. The old woman studied Catelyn's tourmaline ring. Love is a tricksy weed, she murmured. Sometimes it strangles the garden. Catelyn held her gaze. This ring is not love. It is a promise. Promises too may choke. Olenna's eyes softened. But you wield them well. Keep pruning. She tapped Catelyn's wrist with cane in blessing or warning, then shuffled away. The next dawn brought urgent raven from Riverrun. Tywin Lannister entrenched within Harrenhal, forging alliance with Sellsword companies swelling from Pentos. Edmure urged haste. Blackfish scanned the message, jaw tight. Lions lick wounds quickly. We must ride. Lord Mace bid them farewell with baskets of peaches and a chest of silver promissory seals. Olenna pressed a sachet of dried lavender into Catelyn's palm. For nights when river mists breed chills. As they departed Highgarden's flowering ramp, Marjorie Tyrell appeared atop balcony, offering shy wave. Brynden Baelish waved back, cheeks flushing. Catelyn's heart caught, a glimpse of innocence worth every mile. Their return route curved north of Harrenhal by design, entering Crownland's dew-drenched outskirts. Scouts reported Renly slain at Storm's End. Pierced by shadow of black sorcery, some whispered Stannis birthed. His host splintered, many lords turning cloak to Tyrell banner now backing Joffrey, others drifting rootless.
Realms will spoon faster.
3 days' ride from Maidenpool, they encountered charred hamlets abandoned to dogs. Smoke columns in distance betrayed armed bands scavenging. Brynden sent riders to flank. They encountered gold cloaks under command of Yano Slint, plundering grain meant for King's Landing. Lucinda's archers loosed over warning. Bolts struck helmets. The gold cloaks scattered, leaving carts half-burned. At night, a drizzle cooled tempers. Catelyn shared fireside with Blackfish, parchment balanced on knee as she crafted letters. To Edmure, detailing Tyrell bargain. To Ned, assurance of grain on its way. To Peter, notice of terms and caution regarding Tywin's Sellswords. She paused, quill hovering. The urge to scold him for dancing with lions tightened her chest. Yet she wrote instead, "Remember the pledge of rivers unfrozen. Justice flows slower than coin, but deeper. Guard that truth." They pressed east, reaching the King's Road where refugees streamed south. Among them a group of sworn brothers from the Night's Watch, gaunt and shivering, claimed White Harbor's outer walls held against Ironborn but countryside burned. Panic flared behind Catelyn's ribs. Ned's route passed through White Harbor. But the brothers spoke also of a tall, hound-faced knight seen leading a relief sortie north. Hope flickered. Crossing the Trident at Maidenpool, they found Ned's cog moored safe, Sandor Clegane and small Stark Guard drilling townsfolk for militia. Ned embraced Catelyn beneath gull-wheeling sky, relief drawing tremble from his voice. He had new grim tales. Ironborn archer ambushes repelled by Mallister crossbowmen. Tywin's envoy to Redwyne's seeking fleet passage. Together they rode west toward Riverrun with combined escort under Stark Wolf and Tully Trout. Rain followed, fitful, turning roads to pudding. The children delighted in mud. Catelyn endured soaked boots, but Ned's presence warmed every chilled toe. At night they huddled in a single pavilion, sharing memories of Winterfell hearths, laughter of lost summers. Each story a stone bridging parted years. On the 8th day, a lone rider in black and white quartered cloak galloped in, Baelish courier. He delivered silk-wrapped package. Inside, a small Volvel mechanism of brass and obsidian with petals that unfolded into miniature portcullis. A note accompanied. "The gate stands ready. Bring the key." Ned scowled, but Catelyn traced the device's gears. Harrenhal's melted towers, Peter's new seat, awaited alliance. But what gate? She tucked the mechanism away for later pondering. They crested a ridge overlooking the tumblestone to see Riverrun sparkling below like a tarnished jewel. Banners whipped in wind, wolf beside trout. Beyond, fields lay golden with ripening oats, saved by Tyrell grain. Tents of wounded dotted low meadows. Smoke curled from smithies repairing armor. Inside the keep Edmure greeted them, face thinner yet shining with pride. Robb arrived soon, fresh from raiding Tywin's foragers. Family gathered within Great Hall awash with lamplight. Children squealed, hugging father and uncle, while Blackfish clasped Grachan's wrist in warrior greeting. But joy quickly turned to counsel. Scouts described Sellsword banners mustering at Harrenhal. The brave companions, long lances, Cohoric eunuch pikemen. Tywin bartered gold for cruelty. Worse, Raven from King's Landing announced Tyrion named Hand, while Cersei maneuvered for Tyrell marriage pact sealing Joffrey to Marjorie. Realm's tide shifted again. Catelyn produced the brass volvel. Maester Vyman studied gears under candle. A subtle hinge revealed hidden circle etched with coordinates. A cipher pointing to a weirwood grove south of the ruin at Harrenhal. Date inscribed 3 nights hence. Peter sought secret counsel. Debate raged. Ned distrusted trap. Robb urged seizing advantage. Edmure feared leaving Riverrun thin. At last Catelyn spoke. Peter's games tilt toward whichever side wields promise to ascend. We must know his true climb. I will go. Ned objected, but she met his gaze. He will speak plainest to me. I wear his ring. Let me weigh his ladder before it leans on lion or wolf. Blackfish volunteered escort of 50 picked riders.
Ned insisted Sandor e company.
Plans laid, they would depart come dawn. That night, after children slept, Catelyn and Ned walked Riverrun's ramparts above Moonlit River. Water murmured of past and future. I came near death again, Ned whispered, recalling Greyjoy ambush near White Harbor. But thoughts of you kept blade steady. Thoughts of me, she teased soft. Or fear of my wrath if you left me widowed twice? He chuckled, lines at eyes deepening. Both. They paused beneath tower, casting long shadow across dark water. Catelyn leaned into warmth of his cloak. When this storm ends, we will take children to the quiet corners of Riverrun. Plant apple trees. Watch them grow.
Nilkist herbreu.
And tell them stories of how their mother bent rivers and stymied lions. She closed eyes, feeling River's pulse mirror her own. But deep below, currents swirled where tamed waters met hidden eddies. And somewhere within Harrenhal's blackened halls, a mockingbird tuned its voice for next refrain. 3 days' ride, they would discover whether that song heralded dawn or dirge.